Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Posture Project. I hope you're all having a great week so far. If this is your first time tuning in, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Justin Archer, aka the Posture Guy, your #1 source on pain, posture, and performance. And today we're going to be solving the mystery of what happened to your ass. Or if you can't relate with this personally, then maybe you know someone who can, a friend, a family member, a coworker, and I quite literally mean, what happened to it? Where did it go? It seemed to have disappeared. And some people even tell stories, oh yeah, I had an ass, and then when I hit 50 or 60, it just seemed to kind of disappear and flatten out. So it kind of looks like this. They got NBD, no butt disease. And then they go to their doctor, and the doctor prescribes them No-Acetol. I apologize for that joke. I know it's bad, but I just couldn't help myself. All right, anyways, so yeah, they usually have this tucked under pelvis, what we in the business refer to as a posterior pelvic tilt, where the back of the pelvis, the PSI is the posterior superior iliac spine, is lower than the front of the pelvis, these little points here, the ASIS or anterior superior iliac spine. So it's like that, and it basically goes spine, 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 and nothing. There's no butt. It just goes straight down to the ground. All right? Now, usually another posture deviation that is commonly associated with that posterior pelvic tilt is internal femur rotation. And the way you see that is if you look at my knees here, hopefully you can see that, is that they're internally rotated. So naturally they should point straight ahead like they are now at the camera. But if they're internally rotated, where now the kneecap, this one's pointed that way, this one's pointed about that way, okay? That's what internal femur rotation looks like. And so those two are usually combined, and it's usually a signal of pelvic and hip muscle weakness. So this is something that I would say was usually more commonly found in a older, more sedentary demographic. But I tell you what, every year I see more and more people, more and more younger people with these type of postural deviations where they have, no ass at all, no ass at all. Their pelvis is tucked under, and you think, okay, well, why? Well, usually as people get older, they tend to move less and sit more. And so, form follows functions, and so their body starts to take on the form of the chair, the sofa, that lounger that they're sitting all the time. Well, the same thing's happening to the younger generation now that they're spending so much time, at a desk, whether it be, with pen and paper or computer, their tablets, their phones and everything. And, if you think about it, the majority of our day, well, a good portion of it we're sleeping, probably another third of it, so a third of it sleeping, a third of it sitting down, and so there's a third, and that's being, very optimistic here, but less than a third of the time is our actual hip muscles are engaged. So 2/3 out of every 24 hours, our hip muscles are disengaged, and that leads to weakness in that area. And so your body essentially starts to implode on itself. Your pelvis tucks under, your spine rounds forward, your knees even kind of implode and internally rotate because of all the weakness here, because, as the saying goes, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, now let's talk about what types of pains and our physical limitations are associated with this type of posture. Well, if your pelvis is tucked here, think how hard it is to try to sit up, right? If you're sitting in a chair and you're kind of almost sliding on the back of it like so, to try to get that extension in your pelvis to sit up is going to be very difficult. Not to mention, it's going to affect the entire curvature of your spine. Notice, this is how I normally stand, and notice if I tuck my pelvis, you notice how the rest of my spine took on this C shape. Well, now that's going to interfere with things like overhead movement, or movement to the side, or being able to reach. Now I'm finding my own body's mechanics. So I don't even have to pick up something heavy. I could just be reaching for a single, china plate, and I just pulled something in my back because I'm fighting the biomechanics of that posterior pelvic tilt, which is then throwing my back into that kind of C shape. All right. So that's one thing. When you go walking or running, if your pelvis is in that posterior pelvic tilt, it's going to be hard to get that extension. That meaning the leg going behind you. Because if I'm here, notice what happens. My pelvis has to come out of flexion and go into extension for this leg to travel behind me. Okay, so that obviously goes for walking, running, and a lot of other sports and activities. Now, me personally, the worst, this postural deviation kind of just gives me the heebie-jeebies, is what's called tibial torsion. And what that means is, remember how I mentioned earlier how the femurs will generally internally rotate? Well, if you think about that, now your thigh bone is sitting relative to your shin bone at an internally rotated angle. So now the knee joint just went from being a hinge joint that it's designed to being a hinge with rotation in it. So each time you take a step, your joint there, the knee joint, is literally grinding itself away. And then you go to the doctor and you wonder, oh, well, no wonder I have, some loss of cartilage or bone-on-bone arthritis, and then you tear tendons and ligaments, things like that, because you're just twisting and torsion and just torturing that knee joint with every step. So those are some of the things, that can be caused by not having the butt. Not to mention, most people miss not having a butt. So what I've done is put together a series of exercises, which you can find down below this video, that helps re-engage all the hip muscles, everything kind of around this area. It's going to wake it up, engage it, so that your pelvis can go from this posterior pelvic tilt more into a neutral tilt. Neutral being either where the ASIS and PSIS are straight across from each other, or with a 1 to 5 degree tilt forward. Okay, that's acceptable as well. And as that happens, it's also going to strengthen the muscles that will take the knees from being internally rotated and externally rotate them so that they now point straight ahead. All right? And as a result of repositioning your pelvis and getting your knees to point straight ahead and strengthening everything here, now you're going to go from having no ass at all to, boom, have a little bit of junk in your trunk. All right? And wouldn't that be nice, So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. You can call me, email me, Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. All right? Anyways, thanks again for joining me. I look forward to seeing you inside the next video. Until then, take care and keep moving.